Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Casting Seeds. I'm Savannah, your holistic health practitioner, herbalist, and host. Someone commented the other day that I don't say herbalist. Maybe I should. You guys can let me know. And you're listening to the only holistic health podcast that gives you God's singular truth. Under your individualized discernment. Woo! I did that for the first time off the top of my head, so I was kind of goofy when it came to that. You guys had so many questions and references and just so many things to say about the frequencies and hertz and overall healing from that episode that I now have to do a part 2, which I'm so excited about. And unfortunately, Jeremiah will not be. Wait, was he on that episode? I don't remember. No, he just wasn't on the last one. He was in that one because we laughed and giggled half the time. So I want to go over all of the questions that you guys have asked me that I feel like I didn't really get to explain, especially some biblical stuff that came up. And I'm really excited about this. So this is going to be a frequencies part dose. And I don't know how long this is, so I may be able to give you guys some nourishing news today. We'll see. We'll see if we get to it, because I feel like these things are such great. I am so excited. Let's get into it. So I actually had somebody comment today. They asked a really great question specifically on layering clothes, because I know when I brought up the original question that was asked in the group, it was about layering different fabrics for what you're sleeping on. So the person essentially asked, because it's interesting, I'm actually going back to me answering the question and the person isn't there and their question's not there, but my answer is. So I'm going to sum it up for you. Basically, the person was asking about wearing bras and underwear that are made out of different types of basically synthetic fabrics, and whether or not the synthetic fabrics would be able to have a positive or a negative effect on wearing fabrics, like good fabrics that you wear. So this is kind of what I explained. And I explained to her that I actually did a podcast episode specifically on frequencies, but all of the synthetic fabrics are around 10 to 15 hertz. And in the book that I mentioned in the very first one, and I'm sure everybody already is probably sick and tired of hearing about him, but actually in the 2003 study, which I didn't talk about this in the first episode because I had a feeling that we were going to have to talk about frequencies again, and I didn't think it would be this soon afterwards, but maybe this will help narrow things down. Basically, there was a Jewish doctor, her name is Heidi Yellen, Yellen. So she did a specific study on the signatures of wool and linen, because it talks about wool and linen in Deuteronomy. I think it's specifically, Deuteronomy 22:11, you shall not wear cloth combining wool and linen. So she found out that basically all of these different types of synthetic clothing that we wear, which let me see if I can get a list of synthetic clothing just so you guys have that. Okay, there are quite a few. I'm going to read the list of synthetic clothing, and then I'm going to read you the hertz numbers for them. So polyester, nylon, acrylic, rayon, spandex, microfiber, fleece, acetate, I don't know how to say that. It's acetate, acetate, PVC, elastin, faux fur, lyocell, I laugh more without Jeremiah here because it's almost like I get more embarrassed. Polypropylene, velvet. I'm so glad that that's on the synthetic list. I can't wait to rub that in some people's faces. And viscose processing. Really quick anecdote. I hate velvet. If any of my friends are listening to this right now or family, they all know ever since I was a child, I would, just thinking about it is making my skin crawl. If you guys are haters of velvet, please just give me the thumbs up or something. Give me some love because I feel so alone in this. So polyester is at a 5 hertz. Nylon is 10. Acrylic is 12. Rayon is 2 hertz. Spandex is 1. Wow. Microfiber and fleece are both at 9. The ACH one is 8 hertz. PVC is 7. Elastin is 4. Faux fur is 10 hertz. Lyocell is 11 hertz. Polypropylene, I don't even know. That's at 2 hertz. Velvet is at 4 hertz. And viscose processing is at 2 hertz. So basically what Heidi figured out is that anything under 100 hertz on your skin directly wearing it really is not very good for you. It actually causes more of a negative charge for your body, and your body needs a higher field to be able to have like antibacterial. Anything under 100 causes bacteria to grow, viruses to grow, basically all the things that makes us sick. So it also holds in sometimes more moisture when it shouldn't. It's just not as healthy for you as the natural fibers would be. So I broke down in this overall comment, Heidi's study. And then obviously I talked about the book that I recommended last week, which is the Rife Handbook of Frequency Therapy and Holistic Health. So there's that one. I think there's the Frequencies of Rifing as well, which is also a bestseller. And then there's a book about Dr. Royal Rife, which is called Dr. Royal Rife Healing Frequencies for Physical and Mental Balance, which I don't know so much about that one, but the other two are definitely amazing, especially the first one that I mentioned, the Rife Handbook of Frequency Therapy and Holistic Health. It's the 5th edition. It's awesome. It has everything that you need to know. So with that, Yellen's study also found that the energy fields of wool and linen flow in opposite directions. And when worn together, the fields cancel each other out, causing weakness and sometimes even pain. So when they're worn together, like worn together as in like blended into the same fabric and material, it can cause weakness or sometimes pain for people. If people are really, really sensitive to frequencies, yes, sometimes even if you just wear them on top of each other, it can cause that effect. But in her study, it showed that it was mostly when it was woven together, which is what the Bible talks about. So some say that wearing high frequency fabrics like linen and wool can even impart energy to the body, while synthetic fabrics basically pull lower frequencies and drain the body. So linen is also antimicrobial because it contains silica, which inhibits the growth of bacteria and mold. So it's just really cool because you can see that different frequencies actually inhibit growth. They create growth in certain ways. So you can see that's why you can't just go onto YouTube and play all these different types of healing frequencies, because just the same as herbal supplements, right? You're not just going to go into someone's drawer and be like, oh yeah, you know what? I'm just going to take some extra vitamin B, vitamin D, blah, 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 today, right? You're not going to do that if you haven't done blood work and you can see that you're actually deficient in it. Because if you take too much of something, you can become deficient in it. A good way to explain it is like, if I am deficient in vitamin D, but I'm taking a ton of A and K, and I'm already deficient in D, I need D as a full, complete supplement. So if I'm taking a bunch more of A and K, I'm actually making my vitamin D plummet even more if I'm not taking A, D, and K together. Does that make sense? So it's the same thing with frequencies, right? With this being said, this person specifically asked about wearing different underwear and clothing. I have not gotten rid of all of my clothing. I have a ton of stuff that has rayon in it and nylon and spandex because it's cheaper and I can't afford to buy just wool and linen clothing, which there are also other like 100% cotton is, I don't remember what it is. I can look it up. But what I'm trying to say is all natural fibers are much higher and then they give people energy where the other one takes away energy, right? So I have a lot of clothes and a lot of fabrics in my life that do take away energy, but also I don't have the money to be able to purchase all 100% organic fabrics that also don't have artificial dyes and things like that in them as well, right? So we have to be applicable and understanding to our own individual lives and also see like what is actually affecting me. I like to use the woman who runs Tech Wellness. I can't remember her name right off the top of my head, but she is so sensitive to any type of blue light to any type of tech radiation at all. And that's why she became a tech wellness expert, because she is super sensitive to that, right? She's sensitive to those frequencies, to that type of radiation. So she became an expert on it and now educates people. I personally do not get a ton of, negative responses from tech in general. And I'm really thankful because my husband is in the tech field. So I'm thankful that I'm with not, if I was sensitive, I would be suffering in our marriage all the time. But I am sensitive to like electrical pulses for sure, which is a different type of frequency, a different type of radiation. So everyone's different. And it's good to remember to start where you're at, and you can play along, play with these things. You can buy a 100% cotton, just even a sheet, and sleep with that in bed and see, or even just lay on the couch with it or on the floor, or go outside. Go outside if that's a really neutral place for you. Lay in the dirt and lay on the sheet. And then the next day, take a very synthetic material and lay on that outside. And see if you feel more or less energized, and see if it really does affect you. I think that's kind of a good baseline for you to figure out if this kind of stuff even bothers you. I will say though, if you get chronic UTIs or like bacterial or yeast infections vaginally, or even, no, it doesn't work for men that way. I was just trying to think. I was like, no, this is more for women. If you tend to get a lot of infections down there, I would probably consider switching over, especially while you have an infection, to a 100% organic material, or especially like underwear and stuff, not wearing tight underwear, or not even wearing underwear at all, and just using like a cotton pad or things like that in your pants. So that's also a really great switch over. Okay, I want to get over to some other questions that were asked, because that was just kind of like a general thing that I felt like kind of what it goes over a lot of what I'm going to divulge in. Is that the word? Okay, yeah, I was right. Divulge. Sometimes I get called out for making up my own words, so I gotta like double check that I'm not just combining two things. Okay, let's get into the next thing. And I think it was about sound baths. This person messaged me on Instagram and she said, I tell people sound baths are not harmless. That was her comment. We had like a full conversation, but I just wanted to let you know that was her baseline. This was my response to that, and it may be controversial. You guys can tell me and let me know, which is why I love doing this podcast, is because I get so many DMs and emails after episodes like this. So let me know what you guys think. I said, well, for me, this is a 50-50 as to whether or not sound baths are harmless. If you are saved, you are safe from everything. Unless your heart is yearning for an experience, quote unquote experience, then one would say you're actually probably most likely not saved if you think God's creation in any way could bring you closer to God. It can't. Only God can. Prayer, community, and being in the Word, that's how that happens. But you can see God and His glory throughout all of His creation and appreciate Him more through it. There's a huge difference there. But because Christians can only be oppressed, right? Not possessed. You can, of course, invite things that may affect you if you do, let's say, a sound bath. But unbelievers who are bringing in or inviting demonic, evil things around you and are asking you to invite those things in, then yes, absolutely. These types of things can be demonic. But if a group of Christians wanted to do one and feel healing frequencies and just be present or nap together or just play it in the background while they're doing normal, healthy things, then no, I would say a sound bath is not demonic and it does not invite things in. And that's what can make it harmless. So for this in particular, I just want to say with sound baths or sound bath healing, I feel like I summed it up really well in that little message. That's why I wanted to read it. I am not against any type of medicine. And I feel like I made that clear in the last episode. Anything can be taken and made unbiblical. Anything can be taken and made a non-biblical context, whether it's sex, I'm just trying to think, eating, gluttony, even lusting after people in any certain way, I'm just trying to think of things off the top of my head. Even if you hate someone, God says that you're murdering them, right? So that what I'm trying to say is when it comes to sinful things, I think people, especially Christians, need to stop worrying so much about the powers and principalities behind it, because God made it clear that you are already saved. You conquered those things with him, through him, and because of him. You have conquered powers and principalities. So stop blaming demonic things and start holding yourself accountable and say, what is my heart behind this? Why do I want to do this sound bath? Am I doing it to think that I'm going to have a greater experience with the Lord? Do I think I'm going to meet an angel or the Holy Spirit is going to come upon me more deeply? No, that's not how frequencies work. That's not what they do scientifically. And that's not why God created them. Sorry. I'm so heated about this. I'm talking and I'm moving my hands and I keep clicking my wedding ring on the table. So I hope that kind of shows the difference between using something in a biblical way, in a scientific way, and in a way that God created it to help benefit us, versus trying to find a spiritual aspect to it. And that's right there, which is actually blends into the next question that I got. That's the difference between spiritual holistic health and true spiritual holistic health. And I know that sounds confusing, but I'm going to read the next question. You guys will understand. So for my third question, somebody wrote into me saying, Savannah, I am a little confused. It sounds like that you guys may or may not be okay. And I just want to make this clear, with spiritual healing through holistic health. Oh, and so then I had to clarify with her specifically, what do you mean by spiritual healing through holistic health? Because I do believe that God, when he heals you, when he saves you from spiritual death, that is the most holistic, beautiful type of healing ever. And I asked her what specifically made her think that, because I want to make sure that that is not what I teach or preach in any way, shape, or form. And she said that she was just a little bit confused, I guess, at the end when we talked about what I had just mentioned, when I said that when you have sex, there's a biblical way to have it and there's a non-biblical way to have it. Somehow there was a miscommunication there. So I'm going to make it very, 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 very clear in this episode. Only Jesus can save you. There is nothing outside of that, whether or not you're interested in holistic health. Jesus is the only and true way for spiritual salvation. Now, within that, there is holistic and non-holistic ways to treat your body. Not talking about spiritual aspects at all. We're talking about here now in the flesh, the thing that's going to leave forever when you die. You don't have to worry about it anymore because we get a new body in heaven and in the new kingdom come. So it doesn't matter. But for the temporal world here, for us as sojourners that are on this planet, we do have to take care of our bodies, right? And the whole point and focus of this podcast is for people to understand that there are so many different ways to do it. And that's why we use God's singular truth under that singular truth, we go under individualized discernment. Okay. So no, I do not believe that there's any type of spiritual healing. The only type of spiritual healing we need is through Jesus. And that to me is the most holistic, beautiful thing, because holistic means mind, body, soul. It means everything. And God is the only one who can heal every aspect of us if he wants to. It's under his ordinance. It's whatever he ordains at his will at any point in time. So I hope that makes sense. And then outside of that, if we're just focusing on the physical, yes, God can do that if he wants to. But also we are called to take care of our temples, and there are different ways and avenues to do that. And not everyone does really great with frequencies, the same way that not everyone does really great with massage. Not everyone does well with chiropractic, even with herbs. Some people don't do well with certain herbs, which that also blends into, because everyone does do good with herbs to an extent. But normally if you don't do well with herbs, the biggest thing is like you had Chinese herbs and your background is not Chinese. So those herbs didn't affect you as well. And then, from there, like I do really well with my mom's Nordic and my dad is more Italian, Portuguese, and Spanish. So I do really well with, Eastern European, Western European, and Mexican herbs and kind of North America because I grew up here. So my body responds really well to those. So it's about knowing your body and understanding what works best for you as long as it's not leading you or anyone else around you to sin. I hope that was understandable what I'm saying. So let's bring it to frequencies specifically. If I were listening to frequencies and then my husband started going like, yeah, you know what? I started going to Kundalini classes for yoga. And for those who don't know, the Kundalini spirit is like a demonic entity that people invite for that to come into themselves while they do certain yoga classes. And if he said like, oh yeah, I'm getting really into this because they play frequencies and stuff, then we would never do them again in our household. I would say we need to stop this. There's absolutely no way. Or if it was flipped, if it was me, Jeremiah would never let us continue to listen to those things because I would be I'd say we need God and God plus, So Jesus doesn't need anything extra to heal me, but God gave me amazing things through his creation to help me through this process. God did give us frequencies to be able to use. And it's a mathematical, really awesome thing. And I swear God is a God of math and a God of science because people also use numbers where they figure out things in the Bible, even just dates. Like dates are numbers. And the way that he aligns things always ends up being some like crazy, like people bring that kind of stuff together. And I would encourage you guys to look into numerology with the Lord because it is so cool. And you know what? Maybe I'll get into it a little bit. I don't know. But I will say God is a God of science and a God of math. And I wouldn't use it to, see, that's the thing. You can make it simple. People use stuff like that, like the stars. They get into which the stars is another mathematical map that God used to help us be able to tell distance and time. And people use it to make it about them and worship the stars and the universe. It's so weird. I don't understand why people do that. But, that's what sin is. We end up being selfish and making things about us, and we make it human-centric instead of God-centric, right? So that is my spiel on that. And I hope that all kind of makes sense. Let's get into some other questions because I have some more, which is so fun. I love reading your guys' questions. So here is another really great question that I thought was super interesting. Somebody asked, how do sound frequencies affect our perception of music? And is there unbiblical music that we shouldn't be listening to that goes against God? Well, it's kind of a twofer. I'm going to answer the second part first because yes, there's absolutely unbiblical things that we shouldn't be listening to or even seeing, right? We shouldn't be surrounding ourselves with sin. If we don't do that with people that we hang out with, then yeah, I think there is certain music that we shouldn't listen to. Now, don't get me wrong. Do I every once in a while put on like an Eminem song and can I rap the whole thing? Absolutely. But you know what's funny? I've noticed that the closer I've grown to the Lord in sanctification, that a lot of those songs or movies or shows, things that used to be like comforting to me. Sorry, you may have heard little squeals. My neighbors are playing outside in the front yard and it's really cute. And I don't want to stop answering these questions just because they're playing. So you may hear children screaming in the front yard. But yeah, the closer I've grown to the Lord through sanctification, when I've grown closer to him, they're just not comforting anymore. I blast worship music more than anything else now. And those songs are comforting to me. And I've noticed that when people really cringe over certain aspects of the Lord, I kind of think that they're a little bit more of baby Christians. Like you can love Jesus and not love worship music. You may not even be interested in worship at all. But to an extent, I find it weird that, when Christians really, really hate worship, like all of it's cringy to them. I just think that they're probably a little bit more of a baby Christian. You can love Jesus, but when you don't love every aspect, it's like telling me, yeah, I'm really in love with my husband. If a girl came to me and said this, I'm really in love with my husband. But you know what? I hate every, every single time that he eats. I can't even watch him. I'd be like, eating is a huge aspect of being around your husband. That's quite concerning, actually. Do you think it's going to last? Worship is a huge aspect of the Christian walk. So yeah, it doesn't quite compute to me. But also too, I'm very musically based. So to me, that's like the same as listening to music or singing to the Lord is like the same as eating and drinking. Like I need it to survive. So, it may sound a little dramatic to you guys, but specifically going back to the other part of the question, which I really loved, how do sound frequencies affect the perception of music? So scientifically, sound frequencies determine the pitch of musical notes, right? So at a certain hertz, one hertz is going to sound different than 2000 hertz. Lower frequencies produce kind of bass sounds, which provides depth and richness. And then higher frequencies can be more of like a treble sound. So those add really bright, clarifying, like type sounds. The combination of different frequencies creates a harmony. And that texture that you hear, that's music. That's what music is. It's what it's made out of. So a great example is a bass guitar might play a lower frequency to support the rhythm, while the violin plays a higher frequency to support the melody, or a piano, or even a singer. So our ears perceive these frequencies differently, and some people may or may not be more sensitive to the ranges and how they affect their enjoyment or interpret that music. Additionally, we want to remember that any type of frequencies that interact can invoke various emotions, right? So higher frequencies might feel more uplifting, while lower frequencies can resonate and make a sense of calmness or even sometimes tension. So overall, frequencies are essential to shaping the emotional, aesthetic, and experience, I should say, of music. And it's the same thing with movies, even our podcast, right? Or just even life in general. Have you noticed that now that I'm saying this, I want you guys to go watch a TV show or a movie and notice how every single scene nonstop actually has music in the background, because it helps set the mood and the tone. And you don't think about it because you're listening to them talk. But then once you start focusing on the music, you will notice every single scene has music nonstop. When we're thinking about music in general, when we're thinking about frequencies, and Jeremiah made a really great point in the last episode of saying, like, when you play white noise or brown noise or whatever, when you go to sleep, you're listening to frequencies and they're calming you. You're being affected by sounds. It's also understanding that frequencies, when they go into things, like if I were to play, let's say this microphone was 100 hertz, let's just say, if I played that sound, the microphone could expand or contract. Like I could literally pull apart pieces with sound. That's what happens when an opera singer hits a certain note and the glass explodes in front of you. So they have actually been using in the military different frequencies and sounds to be able to affect whole groups of people and make them sick or vomit or even go to the bathroom in their pants, to be able to stop them from doing certain things and not feel good, so that they can then infiltrate a certain area. And it's not like top secret stuff. That's stuff that is kind of common knowledge. And it's just really interesting because now, which we mentioned in the last episode, they're using it to disperse cancer cells and other things. And I did a science project in, I think, 6th grade. I literally could not run faster than the beat that was being given to me. And I realized how sensitive I am to frequencies. Other people tried, and I think 1 out of 10 people could like really push through, but they had to seriously think about it. And it deeply affected my running style. So if I put something faster on, I could run much faster. So I know that I'm very sensitive to sound and frequencies and hertz, but I also know I love to write music. I'm sensitive to music in general because I'm a musical person, and I feel like I can't live without music. So that's kind of the difference when it comes to understanding frequencies and our perception of music is understanding that it's actually around us all day, every day. Everything you interact with, everything that you touch is made up of a certain frequency because, like we mentioned in the last episode, there is that space between every single atom and molecule. And in between that space, they have frequencies playing off of them. And again, God spoke. The whole universe came into existence. And I honestly think that's why our world is made the way that it is. It all came from sound, and it's scientifically based, it's scientifically backed. And I will never not think that that's the coolest thing in the entire world. And I don't know, I feel like we all need to become frequency nerds now because of it. I also wanted to note that this wasn't a question from somebody, but it was more of a comment, and I thought it was great. They said that they wish that I went into more of like communications technologies like radio and Wi-Fi and FM radio and broadcasting, because they're all technically frequencies and how they can affect people, even our feelings and emotions. And I want to say that that's kind of like a whole other rabbit hole, but I did just kind of go over that. So I hope that that kind of answered the question. But yes, every single, light and radio waves, physical, tangible things, those are all a part of frequencies. Everything in existence has a frequency base, and it can all be measured by frequencies. So I just think that that's really cool. That's also what people use if you want to get into like the afterworld spiritual thing, which I don't believe in ghosts. It's almost Halloween, so happy almost Halloween. So this kind of fits that. I don't believe in ghosts. Ghosts are demonic entities. They try to mimic people. When your family members die, they either go to heaven or hell. It's one or the other. And demonic entities will try to mimic things to make you think that your family or loved ones are there, and it is not your loved ones. Okay. I'm just going to say that it's biblical, and I am not going to budge on that in any way, shape, or form. So, when people use like EMF detectors and stuff to like talk to demonic entities, when they're measuring those waves, they are measuring and using frequencies to hear back and listen to things or see things. So I just think that it's interesting that frequencies can see through technically, if you want to get weird about it, all dimensions as well. So that's kind of cool. Frequencies are interdimensional, and that is scientifically proven as well. The last thing that I wanted to get into were some misconceptions about frequencies that I think kind of make things confusing for the everyday person who doesn't understand them. Or if you're listening to this episode and you haven't listened to episode 1 on frequencies, I would suggest doing so. But let's talk about some misconceptions of them in general. So 1, frequency equals loudness. Many people think that higher frequencies are always louder, but loudness is actually determined by both frequency and amplitude. So a low frequency can be perceived as loud if it has a high enough amplitude. So when like people blast the bass and you can literally feel it in your chest, that's a very high amplitude with a very low frequency. So there's a big difference between the two. Same thing with a high-pitched scream. People can get really high-pitched but not have a high amplitude where it's like blowing out your eardrums. So the second thing is all sounds are simple waves. Okay, this will make sense in a moment. This belief is that all sounds are a pure sine wave, S-I-N-E, sine wave? I'm pretty sure it's pronounced sine wave, at the single frequency. But actually in reality, most sounds are complex waves that are made up of multiple frequencies and harmonics. So a hertz, like when you're listening to a hertz, it's not just one like me. That's multiple frequencies coming together to make that hertz. I hope this is making sense. The third one, only certain frequencies matter in music. Not true. And healing. I'm going to add healing. So many people think that only a few specific frequencies are really important in music and healing, but the entire frequency spectrum plays a role in creating balance, harmony, and texture and amplitude to a song. So if you're listening to a certain song and you realize like, yeah, you know what? I really like reggae. I'm a reggae person. Reggae is like one of my favorite top musics. There's a certain type of harmony and balance that goes into reggae that's different than classical music, right? Or someone who loves country music versus rap music, someone who loves R&B versus jazz. All of those different styles is a reason why there's so many different types of genres of music, but there's also a reason why people with certain ailments really love different types of genres of music. I'll give you this. People who love reggae, okay, most of them tend to have more adrenal fatigue. They tend to be exhausted all the time or have higher stress. So they really love listening to reggae music to be able to chill out. And guess what? People who like to smoke marijuana and kind of decompress from things like to listen to reggae for a certain reason. Is this all making sense? Do you see how that kind of connects? So you'll actually notice with your friends, not for you to go around and go diagnose them, but people who have certain stressors or inflammation in different parts of their body, you will notice that those people tend to like the same type of music because it actually makes them feel better internally. They don't even notice that they are more attracted to those frequencies for a reason because it actually helps heal them. Isn't that fun? Fun fact. So number 4, infrasound is inaudible and unimpactful. I'll say that again. People tend to think that infrasound is inaudible and unimpactful. So infrasound is anything below 20 hertz, and it's inaudible to humans. It can still affect us physically and emotionally, causing feelings or unease and anxiety. And remember, all of the clothes that I mentioned at the beginning are all under not even 20, but they're all under 15 hertz. So it's just kind of crazy. Number 5, all frequencies affect us the same way. Okay, that is incorrect. Different frequencies can elicit different emotional responses. For example, high frequencies can make you feel energized, while low frequencies can invoke calmness or tension. But also specific frequencies can affect different parts of matter or organisms as well, because that matter or organism is emitting a frequency consistently all the time. That's why people are attracted to different textures. Some people really like the ocean versus liking a river. Having more salt in something creates a different frequency. There are people who are drawn to certain things and they don't know why. It's because their body is normally lacking in that frequency. So they like to be around the frequency that helps heal them. I hope that makes sense. Like for my mom, for instance, she was so obsessed with 44 hertz. And 44 hertz helps heal your frontal lobe and your central nervous system. And she said she'd literally feel her brain tingle when she played it, 44 and 45 hertz. So yes, if then let's just say, let's pretend lily pads emit 44 hertz. I'm not saying this is true. I'm just pretending and using it as an example. If my mom happened to walk by a lily pad grove and was like, I just could sit here for hours. It makes me feel so good. My brain literally itches. It's because she's literally around that frequency. So that happens. Last but not least on the confusion or misconception with frequencies, number 6, frequency and pitch are the same. So these are closely related. Frequency refers to the measurement in hertz, while pitch is perceived quality of that frequency. Let me make that clear. So while closely related, frequency refers to measurement of a hertz. So let's use 44 hertz again, like my mom. My mom listened to 44 hertz. She liked that frequency. While the pitch is a perceived quality of that frequency. For example, middle C has a specific frequency, but its pitch can vary based on context. So my mom would listen to 44 hertz. On one YouTube channel, she really didn't like it because the sound quality and the pitch came out wonky, and it would sometimes be like it would go on and off. But this other one was a consistent tone. And it made her feel so good. The pitch and the tone quality was good, and it made her feel good. So the other one was okay, but it wasn't as strong as the other. So the pitch and tone is the quality of the frequency. Okay? So I hope that kind of helps with some misconceptions of frequencies. Again, I recommend if you guys are seriously very interested in this, please go read those books that I mentioned and have fun with it. Get into frequencies, play with it, and see if playing one sound in the morning in one frequency makes you feel good and energized, like where you don't have to drink a cup of coffee anymore. See if one helps you go to sleep or helps you stay asleep longer. And also check in with your body the same way that I tell people, do not take the same herbs day in and day out without checking in at least a month later after taking the consistent thing. Remove it for a few days and see if you feel more tired or if you feel good, like all of this, the whole point of holistic health is having fun and checking in and making sure you're doing the right things for yourself and your body, and also asking God, what is your will for me to do this, for me to have fun? And always, of course, ask yourself, who are you doing this for? Jeremiah and I have made that so clear in these past, I don't even know what episode we're on now. We're getting close to 50, and I'm excited and also kind of nervous about that, because that means we're getting close to almost a year of doing this, which is crazy. But what I'm trying to say is, when it comes to holistic health, you guys, it's not about overthinking it. It's about checking in with God's will and what he wants and is intending for you in your life. And once you get that discernment of like, okay, God is making it clear, yes, try this out, and I'm not sinning in any way, shape, or form. Let's do this. It doesn't even have to be that serious sometimes, but who knows? Some people need that. All I'm asking you to do is do a serious heart check and then have fun with it. If God gives you the green light, have fun with his creation. Enjoy it. That's why it's here. I think us as Christians, we can get way too serious about, every tiny little aspect of where God wants to lead us. And there is, of course, we should be checking in, but also God kind of says to us quite often, and I don't think we realize it, like, I love you, and let's just enjoy day to day together. Let's enjoy my creation and all the wonderful mysteries that will literally take eternity for you to ever even try to understand, because that's the time that we have with him. So enjoy it and have fun and enjoy the mysteries of the universe with him. That's why he created these things. And also talk about them with your friends and family and help point them to the Lord and how God created it. Like, that's why I have this podcast, and that's why I love doing it, because we get to talk about all these exciting, wonderful mysteries. And who knows, maybe I should get more specific, I can't talk today, in science and how God proves himself through science all the time. And there's this really wonderful book called Fearfully and Wonderfully Made, but it's old. It's from the 1970s. And I was thinking about going through that with you guys, just in how God has proven himself through science, physical, molecular science and biology. So, but thank you guys for your prayers for my mom. And thank you so much for praying over Jeremiah and I, especially with his job stuff, because it looks like some big things are happening and changing. And until it's official, we don't want to announce it on the podcast, because it could even change the podcast forever. So there's a lot of things up in the air in our lives. And I'm just so honored for everyone who listens to these things, all to me and to Jeremiah and my guests all over the world. Like, I'm just so humbled, and I pray that these are healing frequencies for you guys to hear day in and day out. But it looks like we don't have time for nourishing news today, just because I really wanted to hone in on frequencies. And maybe next week we'll have like 3 just back-to-back nourishing news episodes for you guys, so that we can catch you up on some big things that have been happening, especially leading into the new election year. I love you guys. I pray that you are constantly planting seeds of faith and enjoying casting seeds of faith, right? Because we cast seeds here. And I hope and pray that anytime that you feel as if a pearl has been casted, that you understand the point of it's still a pearl, it's still something that is worthy and beautiful, but just because someone didn't see it as it doesn't mean that it's not a pearl. So be wise with your discernment and how you speak to people. Ask God where to start in your holistic journey, and I pray that if it is frequencies, you guys have a blast, and reach out to me if you have any questions. Thank you guys for listening, and I can't wait to see you next week. Keep casting seeds. We hope you enjoyed learning how to cultivate God's creation from a biblical perspective. Holistic health is to prioritize whole person wellness through Christ. Like and comment on what topics we're casting seeds or casting pearls.
If you found this information provided useful, subscribe to our podcast for future updates, leave a review to help us improve, and share this episode. We would like to remind you before we leave that perfect health cannot be attained in this world.
Only spiritual salvation through sanctification and repentance to God and turning away from sin will give you a perfect body in the kingdom come. Nourish yourself in the Word, in prayer, and in biblical fellowship daily.
Thank you for joining us today, and a special thank you to our listeners for making this podcast possible.
Always praying.
Keep casting seeds.